Ingrid, good evening and welcome to
Hi.
CWS Journeys.
Hello. How are you?
Ingrid, let me just give them a snippet of your bio.
Okay.
Ingrid Griffith has appeared in productions at John Jay College, the American Place Theatre, Era Davis Hall, Clare Rose Playhouse at Southampton Cultural Center in contemporary roles as well as the classics. She studied acting with New York acting coaches Wynne Handman, Vivian Matalon, and Terry Schreiber, earned a master's degree in creative writing and graduated magna cum laude and a BA in English from City College of New York. Griffith's articles on fitness and popular culture have been published in magazines including Essence, The Source, and Pro Sports. She also wrote a column for the New York Star Ledger. Ingrid Griffith teaches at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and the Communication and Theatre Arts Department. And that's just a glimpse of Ingrid.
It's a lot.
Let's get started with here in this summit. How do those close to you describe you? And what do you agree with?
Sometime-ish. Very focused. Could be intense. Playful. Silly. Not too talkative.
You save that for the stage.
Exactly. I save the drama for the stage. And I'm pretty sort of, I don't want to say not too social, but I am sort of very private.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being private, here you are on stage. And I'm jumping because
Okay.
you give me an opportunity to do this.
Sure.
You're on stage, you have this one-woman play. You have to interact with people. You have to publicize. How does a non-talkative person, not so social person, pull this off?
I got to put another cap on, and I have to be someone else, and like find someone in my life that I know that's very. And I have a cousin who's very, very social. Or a family member, not necessarily that particular cousin, but somebody that I know that's very social. And I say, I'm going to be that person, and be her in terms of how she connects. And how she's like always like, the busybody and making the calls, and when she gets on the phone, she's like talking for a long time and really, connecting and getting things done and being happy with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what I do, this is who I am. So I put that cap on and I think I'm good. It's not my cap, it's not me, but it's another extension of what I could do.
This thing you do, that some would say, this is too frightening for me. Going on stage and talking to people, exposing my history in the story I'm telling. What frightens you most on stage, if at all?
I guess just wanting to be present and meeting like in the moment, not expecting anything because I've done it so many times, feeling that I'm coming on for the very, very first time and I am just staying in character and just letting whatever goes and whatever happens, happens. You know what I mean? Not like prejudging and having an expectation because I did it the night before, I did it a month ago. Just saying, I am here and I'm just going to be very, very present and just accept what's going on in the moment.
The first time you stepped on stage to do this play, what was that like?
Nerve-wracking. I think the first time I did it, it was not the entire play and it was among friends, but they didn't know that I was going to do it. I sort of said, I met some friends, and it's funny. I'm going to tell you how that happened. I was at a bar in my neighborhood, and you know how you put the your cards? They say put it in a container, and they may sometimes pick it, and you get like a free drink or something. There was such a bar in my neighborhood so I put my business card in the container, and they called me like a week ago after that and said, you can bring friends for like happy hour, and your drinks will be free, but your friends would have to pay for like drinks for half price. And I said, fabulous. I'm going to invite my friends, and then I'm going to ask them if they're willing to hear what I'm working on and see what happens. Because, you know, I figure it's friends, and if they say no, they'll be drinking. They'll be kind of like, you know, a little chilled out. They'll be up for it, you know, most likely. And I'll be relaxed, I think. So I figured let me just try it on with my friends. So that was the first time, but it was still very nerve-wracking. Because then I had to decide, because I told myself, I'm going to go there, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to throw it out to my friends. And if they say, nah, I'm okay, then I'm okay. And maybe I didn't want to do it. So it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not going to put pressure on myself. If it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, fine. So, of course, after a few drinks, I was like, guys, you want to listen to something I'm writing? And they're like, sure. But it was very nerve-wracking just to kind of then to like center myself and just create that world, because, you know, it's just me and the words. There's no set.
Did you call this Demerara Gold?
All along. But not when I was writing it. When I was writing it, I had all these working titles, and I wasn't sure. And sometimes it was like, oh, when am I going to find the right title? You know, it's like you're using a title, but you're not quite sure if that's it. It doesn't feel like it, but you got to like stick with it until something else comes. Mm-hmm. And I had a bunch of titles. I'm trying to think of one. Getting Through, I think, was one. I can't remember the others. There were like 3 or 4 working titles.
How did you come up with Demerara Gold?
My significant other said, why don't you call it Demerara Gold? I was like, just like that. And I said, excellent. He said it, and I was like, that's it. There was no like, let me think about this. Maybe, no. I was like, that's it.
It just resonated.
It just resonated because it resonated in so many ways. The Demerara, I talk about the Demerara River in the piece. It's about Guyana. It's about, you know, the many waters, of course. The gold mines. I have a scene where my grandfather's coming back and saying, "Don't let me drown in that Demerara River. Don't let me drown with this find." You know, so it connected, and then the gold, because he was a pork knocker, and I talk about a gold ring that my parents gave me when they left, like as a promise that they'll come back. So the Demerara and the gold and the core, what's in your heart. It's not. I have another character. My grandmother, one of my grandmothers, say it's not the gold on your finger. It's the gold in your soul and the strength in your spirit. That's what will get you through this life. You hear me? So all those things resonated with the title. And it was like, how did I not think of that title before? You know?
When did you actually start writing this book?
I started...
And what inspired you?
Well, I was at City College doing my master's. And my thesis was a memoir. I was writing about this story. Mm-hmm. And... I got a good ways in. I have about 400 pages of writing, and I finished the program, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? Should I complete it, you know, do a book? And then I was thinking, as a book, it would be great, but who's going to read it? You know, I'll be a first-time author. I could always self-publish it, but if I wanted to take it to a bigger publishing house, I'm not a name, and no one, it's not going to get the kind of publishing or the attention that I would want, and maybe no one will buy it. You know, there's also that fear. No one will buy the book. So I thought maybe if I turn it into a solo show, I can not only share the story, but I can share it with communities. I go to specific places where I know would want to hear this story and have them, hear it and watch it. And I would also be working as an actor, which is what I really wanted to do all along, but I just wasn't getting enough work to keep me going.
You mentioned your grandmother.
Yes.
And usually when I hear grandparents, I'm always going back in time. So take us back to that time in Guyana growing up, when introduce us to the 9-year-old Ingrid.
Oh, she was 7 years old. My sister was 9. And the 9-year-old was a very looking back, right? I'm going to do a little in retrospect. Very sensitive kid. Probably the kid you don't want to like start up with because I used to cry a lot. But when my parents are around, I'm fine. When they leave me, I'm not happy until they show up, and then I'm sparkling again. So it was that kind of like, I was kind of like very clingy to my parents and very sometimes with other people. You know, I didn't quite like being around people. So that's one thing. I had an older sister, and she was the big sister. She's a typical big sister where she, you know, did all the right things. And if I would cry, she would try to make sure I don't cry as much. You know, she would, whatever my parents told her or us to do, she would do the right thing. I would be the one to be acting up, and they got to try to make me kind of like come around. So this is a child that then was left behind, right? And we used to visit our grandmothers because my father's mother, who lived on Hatfield Street, we would go to her home for lunch from school. My dad would pick us up and take us for lunch there, and then take us back to school. And then we would come back and stay with her in the afternoons and just meet up with my mom at our small, very, very tiny flat on Albert Street. So I was around my grandmother's a lot, but usually when my dad was there. And my mom's mom, Granny, she lived next door to us on Albert Street, but her entrance was on Forshaw Street. And we used to do the same. Sometimes my mom would pick us up for lunch, take us to Granny's house for meals, and then drop us back off to school by with the bicycle would drive us back. So my parents shared us in terms of who would pick us up from school and where we would go. We'd go to each other's, their parents for lunch, their moms. So I knew my grandmothers, but when it was time to stay with them, that's when I freaked out. And I think I freaked out because my parents stayed away so long. You know, the 7-year-old is like, they said, oh, I'm coming back. And I'm thinking, oh, they'll come back next week. You know, maybe in time for my birthday, maybe Christmas, and all those things passed, and they weren't coming back.
So who did Ingrid become at 15?
When I came to the U.S. at 12. And this my story, the show ends when I'm about 16 going to college. Like about to, you know, in 2 years I was going off to college, but it ends when I'm 16, and then I talk about 2 years later I was off to college. And at 16, you're asking what she became. I think she became very, I want to say traumatized. I think the culture definitely was traumatizing. Leaving my grandmother's world, and Guyana was very quiet, very conservative, as you know. We were very, very protected and very sheltered. We didn't do anything in Guyana. My grandmother was super, 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 super protective. And then when we came to the U.S., we all of a sudden were like on our own. Our parents were working, and we'd come home from school, open the door, and we'd be by ourselves until they came home, which was like later on at night. So that was something that we've never been alone, you know, in Guyana. Our grandmother was always home.
You mentioned your grandmother. And you were fortunate, I must say, because when I came around, there was only one grandmother.
Okay.
My paternal grandmother. But you had the benefits of both grandmothers and your mother.
Yes.
And I'm not leaving your father out of this, I'm going to bring him in, but how did the women in your life help to shape this woman you've come to know as Ingrid?
Well, very, very strong women, very different women, and strong in different ways. My grandmother Ada, my dad's mom, she was a school teacher. Her sisters, she had 2 sisters and a brother, and they were all music teachers, or one of my great aunts, she had opened a school on the East Coast. So they were all like doing things way back in the day, and so I knew about women holding their own, you know, having their schools and having their careers and doing things they love to do and speaking up and being passionate and, you know, all that stuff. Not independent women, I know. And my other grandmother, she raised her 5 children with the help of other women, family members. But on her own, she and her husband had split up a long time ago. I never met my grandfather, but I know of him, but he passed away by the time I was born. But she was very into the church, and she was a very upstanding woman. I remember Granny had no money. We were not rich or anything, and people would be like, I don't know, they just saw the thing in her. She had so much presence, she had so much class, she had so much ease, and she was helpful to people. People would be like genuflecting and coming to Granny, asking for things, Granny offering. Granny had a house the size of a matchbox, and I'm not kidding, a tiny, tiny house. Family members from everywhere, from Mackenzie would come and stay with Granny. Everybody was coming to Granny's house, and she'd be like, come on in. Sure, there's room. There's no room. But she's like saying, sure, there's room. People just loved my grandmother and appreciated her. There's a certain, I don't know.
Generosity.
Her generosity and her kind of like a very solid, yeah. There's something very, inside of her, who she is, like exudes, you know? And there's a certain calmness in a woman that's in control and just would be there for you. And that's what I loved about her. She was always there for me. She was a very loving, giving soul.
You gave a lot of yourself on stage. In this play we're going to talk about Never Our Gold. You're very generous with your timeline. The challenges you had growing up as a child, it's part of the whole essence of the play. When you were on stage, or in your life, rather, and you were being committed and passionate and generous and a lady, who are you channeling from your grandmothers?
My grandmother, Granny. Granny for sure. I played them, both of them. So when I'm playing Ada, I channel Ada because I have her down good now.
Are either of them alive?
No.
Okay.
No.
If they were alive,
yes,
and were in the audience as you, played the roles, played them, what do you think the conversation would be like afterwards?
I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, you know? Because it's sort of like embarrassing sometimes to think, no, what's wrong? You're going to say no when I get off the stage.
You're a storyteller. That much is obvious, right? You tell this wonderful story about your life. If you were sitting, you and your sisters, sitting in the presence of your grandmothers and your mother,
yes,
to listen to a story, what is one particular story or type of story you think they will tell the three of you?
Well, Granny is good for talking about old-time story.
Granny's not Ada.
Granny's not Ada. My mom, yes. Ada's more reserved. So she was not a talker and didn't quite tell us about our family history. Granny's the one that I can ask. And she was, I would ask her she would tell me when I was born. I would say, tell me the story again, because she loves to talk, and I like listening to her. And she would tell me, oh, when he was born, and your father knocked on the paling. And I said, who's this? And I opened the window, because it's nighttime, and I go turning in. And he said, oh, she get another girl. Is another girl. And I said, how's she doing? She going back to the hospital. So it's, and I'm like, my mouth is open, I'm laughing because she's telling me to find, and then she show up at the hospital the next day, your eyes big, your eyes open, big, them big eyes, my God. So she loves to go on and on with these
What is your favorite memory of her, Ada, and your mom?
Her, Ada, about three together, or
separate.
Her, Ada, and my mom. Well, Ada, I just know as being super strict and being very watchful. And you know what? She was the one who instilled that thing in me to, I don't know, there's a side of me that's critical thinking side, actually. It's a critical thinking skill. I'm very, and I really, as I get older and as a teacher, as you know, I teach, that I really instill that in my students. So it's a very added thing because it's about making decisions, you know, making wise decisions so you can get through life without stumbling. And, you know, it's like weighing things, weighing the good thing about the situation and the bad, seeing the sides and making the wise decision. Because I was very wise in that way. You know, she kind of like instilled that, being careful, but it's not a negative, you know, and thinking things through, not being impulsive. And that's definitely her, that's very added. My grandmother, Granny, would be more, I think, about the spiritual side. I think she's very spiritual and, you know, about taking everything to God and trusting and doing all you can and believing that God is guiding you and, pray and be thankful. And she was responsible for the spiritual side of me, and I really appreciate that. She took us to church every Saturday. We were Seventh-day Adventists. And so every Friday night we go to Granny's and we go to church on Saturdays and we come back to Ada's on Sunday.
I'm on.
And my mom. Well, you see, as a kid growing up, my mom, can't remember my mom that much because she left when I was 7, but I do remember her taking us to school on the bicycle. And I remember, it's like a joke. It's not a joke, but I remember this story. Like, we're climbing on the bike, so my sister goes on the saddle, not the saddle, you know, the back seat. What do you call that, the saddle?
The carriage.
The carriage. My sister, no, I go on first because I'm the younger one, I'm the smaller one, and then my sister. And she always would tell us, stay focused, because I always like to look around. And she would say, don't forget, she'd like riding the bike, stay focused back there, stay focused. And one day my foot go into the spokes and we fell down on the streets.
Oh.
And we just turned, it was just about like a block away from school because she's bicycling us back to school. And it was, so hollering, big hollering, I crying, and the blood at the ankle because the ankle gets stuck in the spoke, so we all fall down. And she's like, I told you to stay focused. So she had to now bike us, put us back in the bike and go to Joshua Hospital for stitches. And I tell myself, that day she probably said, God, just give me some strength with this child.
So, you tell such delightful stories about your grandmother. And I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting on the play Memorable, which I've seen several times. And I urge the listeners, if they have never seen this play, go see it. Go see Ingrid. I'm going to ask Ingrid later on in the show to give us some tests, but you sat down and you wrote this one play. What was most challenging in writing this play?
Remembering the painful scenes, like the scenes with them, leaving. That was painful for the kid, and staying with the scene. Keep writing, although I'm feeling of getting upset. Because I would, because I'm recalling, I start to feel, that shaking again, and I'm teary-eyed again, and, and I have to keep going. I have to stick with the dialogue and finish the scene. And even like the scenes with my dad, there were times as I got older, when we moved to America, there's some scenes that are painful because it started talking about the family dynamic. My parents weren't doing well, and we weren't doing well as a family. And now I have to create the scene when my father and my mom are fighting, and I don't want to. But that's the story I'm telling. Those difficult things, those painful things, are the things that make the story what it is. We want truths as artists. You can't avoid those things.
I have to ask this, because this is difficult for most people, and perhaps the reason why most people refuse to tell their stories. as an artist, you knew you must. You had to.
I had to.
But as Ingrid, the granddaughter
Yes.
of Ada and Granny,
Yes.
these two amazing, one very quiet and introspective, and so the other one, will tell you anything. But coming from that sort of background, that strict, you don't tell people stuff.
No.
How did you, what gave you the bridge? How did you cross that chasm into, you know what, I have to do this and I'm going to do this? When did it become, I know there's there are three questions in there. How did you cross that chasm and when did it become comfortable for you?
I crossed it when I decided that I needed to write the story. My voice needed to be heard. My story needed to be told. And if my voice needed to be heard, all the things that I've experienced, right, that's compelling me to tell the story, then I have to be as truthful as I can. And yes, this will be painful. I'm going to hurt feelings. And I'm going to bring stuff up that I don't want to share because we all have this veneer.
Yes.
We all are going through life with a public side and a private side. And how do I then, why am I exposing all this stuff to people that never saw me in this light or never saw my family in this light or never knew, it's like, why am I shaking things up? And I needed to do this for me so I can move on. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
This is about me, my journey, and me freeing up myself to continue on my path because there's so much I need to do, and this is part of that. Yeah. And I think it's also a story that a lot of people can relate to, and a story that a lot of people feel they can't share, and that might be holding them back to be who they truly are, if you know what I mean, and go after things that they truly should be going after.
How long have you been at this?
It's been 4 years because I've been performing the show for 2, and I was writing it 2 years before that.
Congratulations, Ingrid. I have to say this to you. What gives you great satisfaction about this play?
People's response. The audience they're amazing. I feel it, it's like I'm on stage and I'm talking because I'm telling a story, and I feel the connection. I feel that the audience is very much with me. I mean, they're laughing, but they're also, I can feel them crying, I can feel them feeling sorry, I can feel them catching themselves again and coming back into the story, and I feel them taking that journey, and when after the show, what they tell me, and what we share after, because usually there's a Q&A. Most of the time there's a Q&A because it just lends to a Q&A. People want to hear the process, or where my dad is, or where my mom is, or why did you do this? And then they start to share as well. And it's like the people start opening up. And we're all listening and saying yes. And we're shaking our heads because it's like, we get it. It's our story on some level. Everybody's story is unique. But on some level, it's like, wow, I remember this happened to me and I did this. And guess what? You were lucky, at least you had a sister. I was by myself and I was hurting and I had no one to turn to. All these different things. And one said, my teenage daughter is you. That's what how she was behaving when me and my husband were going through this upheaval. This is what she was saying, and how she was reacting. And she says, I am glad I'm through this. And we're a family, we're a different family, but we got past this. But I so relate to this story, and I'm so glad you're sharing this.
Here you are, telling the story on the stage, playing these various characters, setting up these various scenes that were quite emotional for you, took you through the various emotional roller coasters. How painful is it still for you every time you tell the story?
It's not as painful. It really isn't. I feel I am more the characters, and I'm really just telling the story. It does not necessarily mean it's me personally.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But what do you draw on though? Because I'm telling you, I've seen this several times,
right.
And there is this rich emotional expression or rich emotional expressions that we have. And you can feel the characters you just said. You can feel these characters, you can feel what the characters are going through. What do you draw?
My experience. I still have to draw the, you know, as an actor, but it's not as painful. It's not as fresh as it was.
Sorry, yes. But for an actor or an actress, is that difficult to get to that point, especially when it's a personal story? Is it difficult to get to that point where you still have to draw on the emotions of the moment these things transpire, but it doesn't hurt you as much? Is it difficult to get to that point?
No, and that's the nice thing. As you do it, the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
The benefits of the dark.
Exactly, exactly. And it becomes, for me, I actually enjoy doing it more and more on a level because it feels, I'm less watchful, I'm less careful, I'm more being the part fully. I'm committing more.
How important for young actresses or actors, how very important it is for you to lose yourself in the character?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's a joy. And I think for me, it has only happened with this run. I mean, yes, you lose, there are different levels of losing yourself.
Yeah.
I have found a level that I've never found before because I've never had such a long run. I've never done a piece for so long.
How much has repetition helped you?
Tremendously. Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that because I like doing the work. I like being on stage. And it's a wonderful feeling to know if you're open, stay open because you still got it, you can't prejudge it, So you're going there, open slate, know the characters, and then just willing to jump in and see where it goes. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Let's take a break.